here. No? Okay,
Okay, I have to click on it.
there you go. So this is round two of getting to know Nicholas.
Yeah.
And so I am curious, why don't you start off by, saying your name and where you are?
Nicholas Emmanuel, and I am in Silva, North Carolina, which is in the Great Smoky Mountains, about 40 minutes west of Asheville, North Carolina. Number one hippie city in the country.
There you go. So I think it's interesting because we had a conversation with you and your colleague Ernest,
Yeah.
and so it seems like you felt like there may have been some parts of you or some pieces of you that didn't come through there, or
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And just
Mhm.
kind of have an individual piece to see where we go.
Okay, well that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
The first big question that I usually ask, and I think it's kind of a fun question because it's really the very Gestalt existential question is, who are you as a human being? And you can always add today or right now at the end of that.
Who am I today?
Yeah.
You may not want to know who I was when I was 20. Trouble. But yeah, who am I? I'm a people person. I love the connections and the interactions. I really thrive on that. And that's part of why, I actually decided to get on Zoom when COVID was here because I didn't want to get out and risk infecting myself or my wife and all that. And I was off for about a month, and I went, "What am I doing? These are ways that I sustain myself in connecting to other living creatures." And we were getting a little isolated. Uh, I'm a guy who loves music. I probably have thousands of old vinyl and some new vinyl, CDs, Amazon Music, and I love to move and dance. Um, I don't do any ballroom or anything like that, but I just love to feel myself in connection with the music and just move. And my wife has done that, and I have done that for a long time. We even used to get into little contests and things and win. So I love doing that. It's another way of sustaining myself and just and part of my heritage is Greek, and the Greeks talk about you dance your joy, you dance your sorrow, you dance your anger in this dance. So I think I kind of inherited some of that from my father. Uh, Family is number one for me. My work is second. Um, that's part of who I am. I grew up in an extended family in the same house, and there's always a lot of people there looking out for each other. There was a lot of craziness, but there's also a lot of love and looking out for each other and there when you actually needed them. So that's part of what continues to exist with my daughters. I have three daughters and two granddaughters, and we still do that kind of thing. And I love being in the woods. Not crazy about cities. I like visiting them sometimes, but I remember when we lived in Massachusetts, we had friends in Manhattan, and we'd go and see them. And for a couple of days, I was just having fun. And all of a sudden, I went, I got to go back to the woods. I gotta get, I gotta get back. We were living in the Berkshires then, and on a big pond, and um, What else am I? I'm always exploring new things and new ways of being. And sometimes that's a struggle for me because I can still hear some of those interjections from a long time ago. And, damn, still there. Okay, what's my choice this moment? I go there, I go somewhere else.
Mhm.
And, sometimes I make one choice and sometimes the other.
Hmm.
And I tell you, what I find is I really empower myself that way. If I go, okay, let's see, I had a mama who loved to be miserable, and I have some of that, poor me stuff. And if I start to do that, I'll just stick with it. And I go, I'm doing this. I'm in charge of me. So damn it, I can do this right now. And the next minute, I can just do the opposite if I want to. So I find playing with both ends of that, both polarities of that, very empowering. And sometimes, poor me can just go soak in the tub and actually have a good time.
Mhm. It's a skill, right? It's an option. It's a skill.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's definitely a skill. And I've been, yeah, family is just huge for me. My wife and I have been together. I met her in around Halloween, actually, in 1976. And we've been together. We just sort of met then, early the next year. We got together and we've been together ever since. Been through Gestalt training together and trials and tribulations and bringing up kids. And you know about that.
Mhm.
And, you know what I love to do? It's like I remember I went to the University of West Georgia psychology department, which is uh, a major humanistic program. And it started in the 60s, late 60s. And I mean, the whole focus was around humanism and creativity and that whole thing. I actually went there to study parapsychology. When I got that, like, this place is huge. There's just so much going on. Like we had courses where uh, some universities would have the history of psychology. We had the psychology of history, and we would study everyday human beings' lives and how they lived. And people would do art and literature as part of their projects and learning. It was just amazing. And I can remember lots of things stuck with me. I really chose to change my life being there. One of the things I remember somebody said, which stuck with me, was like, it's an old Chinese thing, uh, that the way through enlightenment is washing your clothes, sweeping the floor. And I love doing that. I love just the ordinary, simple things, around the house. Like I love to get out and get in my garden. I'm the guy in charge of most of the laundry here, and when it's done, I feel great.
Enlightened?
Huh?
Are you enlightened at the end of the laundry?
Uh, I don't know if I would call myself enlightened overall or not, but I'm probably more enlightened than if I spent a lot more hours doing work, 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 work,
Mhm.
and trying to achieve something and get notoriety or something like that. I'm not really. interested in that. Yeah. Uh, I feel good when I do it. I feel good when I do it. Maybe that's what enlightenment is. I don't really know.
Hmm.
So who knows what it is? Different definitions for everything, I think.
Hmm. So you said that you changed yourself or you changed your life in that period. How so?
When I was in my graduate school program, it was so different than like when I got out of undergraduate school. I'm like, I don't even know why I did this. I really don't know any more about me or other people, or not that much. It was just kind of standard stuff. When I was at West Georgia, it was just a whole different way of looking at the world and yourself, and how you learn, and um, how you think about things, and how you feel about things, and actually what you do. Uh, it was all about uh, originality and creativity. It wasn't about research; it was about search,
Hmm.
and still is mostly. They, you know, as the times have changed, they've transformed a little bit, but still pretty amazing place.
Hmm.
And it got started with there were several just kind of it was just a little college in Answer University, and there were three guys that said we're tired of thinking about and looking at rats and mechanization. I can't say that word. Uh, and we want something different. So they contacted Abraham Maslow at Brandeis and asked of someone who would come down and help develop a humanistic program, one that focused on people rather than research and statistics and laboratories and all that stuff. And he sent down a guy, Mike Aaron, who's not living anymore, but he was an amazing human being. Was the year he died of cancer a few years ago, and he was in China teaching I Ching and that kind of in China of all places, you know. So it was that kind of place. People from all over the world into that department. It's amazing. So I got to look at me differently. I got to look at the world differently, and I got to go. That's being challenged. Didn't think of that before, and I just opened up my life to a lot more and different things, different ways of seeing and hearing.
Hmm. And so how does that influence or how did that and your family influence each other? I mean,
Uh, I'm not sure what the question is.
well, I mean, I think we all sort of come in, we learn how to, be a family, right? We have all of these wonderful things from our origins. But then how, because you've said that family is, the most important thing for you. So can you say some more about what that is or how you've understood it, learned it, done it, created it?
The family, in terms of uh, my experience at West Georgia, is
No,
it?
I mean, how those experiences that change you as a person, then
Oh,
I don't know if
oh,
they do, because I've talked to a lot of people who've said, I'm a different parent or I'm a different grandparent after
yeah,
Gestalt. But I mean, how,
yeah.
I
But
think I'm more interested in the family than the West Georgia influence on the family, but
yeah. There's been several places that where I felt that experience. One was when I was at the Gestalt base school in Massachusetts, and in my Gestalt training. I think the just first thing that I bring up is that I get more of me to bring into the relationships.
Mhm.
I get more vulnerable, and I get to share more of who I really am rather than all the interdicts and the masks and everything that you know we do to protect ourselves, the coping skills, creative adjustments that sometimes are helpful, but sometimes we hide behind.
Mhm.
And so I think each place I've opened that up a little more to kind of be able to express what I think and feel and believe, and which to me, and even uh, what I need or want, which can sometimes be a little tricky, but those things are for me really the beginning basis of intimacy. When I share with you what I think and feel and believe, and need or want, and not that you have to do anything about any of it, but uh, and then if someone shares with me the same, I mean that's huge. So I
Mhm.
think each place I've taken a little step in being able to do that. And I'm appreciating this right now too because I hadn't put that together to say it in that way, and that's I feel a little teary now.
Mhm.
Uh, Thank you for asking that. It's I feel good that I was able to put it in those terms, which I had not before. Um, hmm. I'm a little lost for words this moment. It's so good. Uh, hmm. I don't know what else to say with that this moment. Uh, and uh, interesting. For a long time, I thought about creating a Gestalt Institute, and that was part of my journey of learning to allow myself to give that to myself and do that and not scare myself so much about it, or being able to reach out more. Because that's what it takes to create that is, well, one of the major things to create, to reach out to people and say, hey, let's do this.
Mhm. And how was that for you?
I'm sorry.
How was that for you?
Well, it's interesting. Everything I've ever done and dreamed about, when I get there, I go, this is not how I thought it was going to be.
Surprise.
Like, I'm having to deal with what?
Yeah.
It's the director. I'm having to deal with what?
Yep.
So that wasn't in my. I was thinking, I'd be sitting under an apple tree and the apples are just falling into my lap. Not so. That's part of the transformation. Really is learning to be with what is, and I think being with my daughters, my wife, and all that. Like everybody else, I guess, we think it's going to be a certain way.
Mm.
And some of it is, some of it just is not. So, I think in all those places I've been opening up myself in different ways, learning to be with what is.
Mhm. What's funny is I was listening to you, I go, ugh, when I hear, that Gestalt institutes or training groups or things are like family. But as you were speaking, I was sort of hearing a little definition in my head of like, oh, it's a place to intentionally practice relationship, in a committed way.
Yeah.
Guess maybe for me they are parallel, and then they also go sideways in parallel ways of, the other person will also fully show up and it's not going to be what you expected after that.
It ain't always pretty.
Yeah.
but it's always good. It's
Mhm.
always good. I may not think so at the moment, but in the long
Mhm.
run, okay.
Yeah, I liked your answer is that it's interesting. That's one of my favorite words.
It's
I
interesting.
think, but it's true though. I think as long as you can be curious about, well, now what are we doing?
That's right. That's right. And I love that. Like you know, when Ernest and I are putting the programs together, it's like we're just like, and when we get there, it's like, what is what are we doing now with all that we just created and what's showing up? Oh no, yeah, let that piece go.
Hmm.
This piece worked. Let that one go.
Well, they're
Yeah,
two different things. One thing is an idea in your head, and
that's
another
right.
thing is a room full of people.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It was interesting too. At the University of West Georgia, I loved every professor except for one. And I took one course for him from him. I went, never doing this again. And in the next semester, he was the guy who taught Gestalt therapy. And I said, ain't going there. I don't care what he's doing. So it was later that I got connected to Gestalt therapy. So that
How
was
did that
fun.
happen?
How did that happen?
Hmm.
Well, it's a bit of a story because I had another marriage before this one when I was like a baby, and neither one of us knew what the heck we were doing. It's like so, so I was actually teaching at a university, Fayetteville State University in North Carolina, and we were so broke. Oh my gosh, we were broke. Had been out of graduate school for long, and we had a baby. We had a little girl. This is uh, my oldest daughter. And so we thought, what are we going to do? It's like, we were just babies. Maybe we should go bankrupt. We didn't know what the hell we were talking about. So we asked around and we found this attorney and we went and met with him. I don't know if you're aware of an old folk singer, Burl Ives. He looked like Burl Ives. He played the banjo and he sang. It was this, you know, it was just the picture of him. And we went in and we sat down and we talked to him and told him what was going on. And he said, ain't nothing in his great southern accent, ain't ain't nothing bankrupt but your marriage. And he reached in his drawer and he pulled out a copy of Gestalt Therapy verbatim and pushed it across the desk and he said, read this. And I read it, and from then on, I just got so excited about it. You know, I started looking for trainings, even attempted to do some workshops myself, and just read everything I could. That's how I got into it. The rest is history.
Hmm.
Interesting guy.
Did you ever find out, or does it matter how he had that book, or why, or where that came from, or was it just a passing connection for you?
Well, you know, that's interesting. I don't know how he got that. I mean, he's not living now. It, uh, I don't know the answer to that question. That's interesting that I never asked.
Hmm.
How did he get that? Oh my gosh. I wish I could have a time machine now. Could go back.
Wait a minute, who are you? Where did this come from? Yeah.
That's right. Holy cow.
Well, I think that's probably, you know, there's probably a lot of stories like that after, Fritz Perls doing his
Yeah,
side circus road trips, just throwing that stuff out everywhere.
yeah. I think he was. I think he was a searcher, and probably was looking at a lot of different things and all that.
Hmm.
He was an incredible support to me as well.
Hmm.
And he actually, I guess it was a year or two after he was actually encouraging me to do some seminars and stuff. And, he had been, he had a little G's, he worked on MGs, little cars, and drove like a maniac. And had been coming, leaving some flyers and stuff for me in different places, flying down the road and flipped his car and hit some sort of metal thing on the side of the road and died
Oh,
there.
oh.
But here are the tears again. Just thinking about stuff. What an incredible support he was to me.
Hmm.
That human interaction, I love it.
Hmm. And would you say that you did have Gestalt teachers? Were there people that you did go and learn from and study with?
Yeah, I started out with a couple of guys in South Carolina who you probably never heard of, and they did some combination of Gestalt and bioenergetics, and that was my first sort of official training that I did. Uh, and we did that for a while. My wife and I both, like my current wife, and I did that for a long time. And we we were living in about 40 miles from Charleston, South Carolina. And after we did that, we started going to Miami with the Gestalt Institute of Florida, Gertrude Krause, and about 5 or 6 other people. And Ernest had been there as well. And she was just amazing. And the people there were amazing to me. Gertrude, she was about my age. I think when I met her, she was 75, 76, something like that. And back in those days, us hippies would sit around on the floor, cross-legged or whatever, and do the work on the floor. And she had cancer then, and she was this little teeny Jewish lady who would sit cross-legged and on the floor and smoke cigarettes, and it would look like a therapy session. And she was, I even thought about moving down there to be closer, but I didn't do that. And there was another woman I remember in particular, Polly Orlando, and she'd been a dancer all of her life. And the weekends with her would be totally different. Some words, but not many. Lots of movement, connecting with yourself and other human beings. It was just so powerful. Um, so that, and we went for a year or two, drove from South Carolina, flew sometimes, Miami. And then she came out and did a whole thing at Bon Clarkin, which is I think it's a Presbyterian retreat center near Asheville. And we also did a peer thing uh, outside of Charlotte for a while that Ernest actually was a part of, but we didn't remember that we were there. We were probably there in the same room. I mean, didn't remember each other. And we would work with each other a lot. And then sometimes Gertrude would come up from Florida and work with us. And Jack Mulgrew, do you know Jack? He
I've
was in,
heard his name from you too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he was in Boone, and he would come up sometimes and work with us. And that was that was pretty beneficial group of people too. And when I went to the DeSisto school, I didn't actually work for the school. I actually worked for the Gestalt Associates of New York.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you know those from Alan Whiteman, Johanna Barrett, and all those. So we worked for them, but it was a job, but it was a huge training program because we lived, ate, slept, not much sleep, but we slept. It was all Gestalt stuff. And there was a guy named Jerry Abraham. He was a psychiatrist. He and his partner, he was a Gestalt therapist, and he and his partner were several times over world's champion Latin amateur dancers. And he would come in and they would dance for the school sometimes and us, but he always did a training program for us each week. They actually lived in Montreal because there were teachers they wanted to learn from there. And they would come down to the school about 3 days a week and then go back to the dance. And you could see all the moves in the dance were similar to his moves during therapy. So we trained with him. We trained with Johanna and Alan and that bunch. And there was another place that I made changes in my life. And
And what happened there? What were those changes?
similar, just more of like keep waking up to stuff. Like, God, I never thought of that. I did what? Oh my God. I apologize. That was me. Okay. I have to look at that. What's that about for me?
Mhm.
And I think Gestalt, that's an important piece too. And certainly is for me that when I'm sitting with someone, I'm still learning. This is like two human beings sitting together. It's like the stuff that person knows, the stuff I know, the stuff they don't know, the stuff I don't know. And we're just figuring this thing out together. We're doing it together. And I'll tell you, I guess I could actually say everybody's different for me in some way, but the more the difference is, the greater the difference is, the more I keep with me, especially in the beginning, but all along is if I'm working with a person of color, if I'm working with a woman, if I'm working with a person from another country, there's just stuff I don't know. I don't know. And I'm not going to assume that they're seeing the world in a similar way that I do. So I get curious and I ask, and I want to know. We have a big Cherokee population here, and I've worked with a few of them, and thinking about this particular woman, and I said, we were talking about Cherokees and all that, and I said the word squaw, and she looked at me and she said, "Don't ever say that again." I said, "Why not? What does that mean?" She said, "For the Cherokee, that word means prostitute." I said, "Okay, got it." Never. I had no clue. I mean, that's been a word I've heard all my life, and it's just like meant a woman, maybe
Mhm.
even a woman to me, but I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Hard for me to find that out and take ownership of that I didn't know, and I heard them, and may have meant one thing to me, but it totally meant something else to them, and really important for me to acknowledge and honor that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So I'm always looking for that piece because there's just stuff all of us don't know about other people. I mean, I work with a lot of therapists now, but I still work with a pretty diverse population, people do other jobs, work on construction or whatever. And it's like, I don't know what it's like to live that life. So I'll find out.
Mhm.
That's like reading a great novel, watching a great movie or something in a much more personal way.
Mhm. Mm. And so what would you say is the essence of how you work? What is it that you do after having taken, all of these learnings and experiences from different places and different people? What are you doing right now?
Sorry, there's a little thing that jumps up and
Mhm.
turns my volume down every now and then. I can't figure out how to stop it, but I have to lean forward and exit out. What am I doing now? Well, I'm being curious. I'm watching. Um, I'm attempting to observe what people are doing more than what they're saying. Although I think, a story sometimes it's important for people to say. They want to tell their stories, and there's some real advantage to that. And I think that's not always true with some, not all, but with some Gestalt therapists. They don't necessarily want to hear the story. I enjoy these stories. I think it's a way of the two of us getting to know each other in different ways. Um, and I think mostly what I do is I'm appreciating where they are. And the fact that whatever they're doing, even if it's destructive stuff, has been and is an attempt to take care of themselves. And it's a skill that's useful if we pay attention to what is in front of us and if that skill is needed at the moment, or do we get ourselves in jams by trying to do the same thing over and over. So I enjoy and find valuable uh, appreciating where they are.
Mhm.
I feel stupid today. Okay, say more. I'm not into fixing them or changing them. I'm into being with where they are.
Mhm.
And I'm very open to sharing with them where I am. Sometimes we'll have similar ideas or experiences, or, some people who are dealing with their children. And sometimes I'll share with them. Wish I knew 30 years ago what I know today in dealing with my kids. Well, okay, I said to them, your mother and I did all we could. When you go to therapy, we'll help you pay for it.
Mhm.
So we're in the same boat. Well, similar boats, not the same. Um, I I like a combination of just saying what I see and hear, which sometimes can be a little confrontive. Uh, but I think the compassion is also really important
Mhm.
to put those two together and have a sense of everybody's doing the best they can at any moment, at any given moment. And, not the same, but some of the struggles that we may all go through, and we may not know at the moment, or we tell ourselves we don't know at the moment how to get out of these struggles or move beyond them. there's this piece too that in Gestalt therapy that I also believe in, uh, that we're each responsible for creating our own experience. Nobody's making us angry. Nobody's making us sad. Nobody's making us scared. That's huge. And what's also huge is the other end of that is if I know, I'll just do it in a personal way. If I know that my wife or one of my daughters or my good friends is going to scare themselves by something I say and do, I may choose to not be a participant in that because I know they're going to do that. I won't take responsibility for it.
Mhm.
But if I know that, you know, unless it's something, that's a real ethical thing and giving up a huge part of myself or something, I'm not talking about that kind of thing, but just something that I know they're going to make themselves uncomfortable. I may choose to say, I'm not going there because I feel like there's a part that I have a responsibility in. If I drive 80 miles an hour down the road, my wife gets really scared. So I'm not going to do that. I don't have it. It's not that important to me.
Mhm.
She's going to scare us still. Just a little minor example from that
Mhm.
kind of. I think putting those two together, and I think sometimes that. Well, I don't want to say that. Let's talk about me. Yeah. So that's part of what I'm doing is saying what I see and say, so what you making yourself scared about today? What you making yourself anxious about today? But I'm going to honor that I know I can make myself scared and anxious, and that's just what we do. Human beings stuff. So I'm going to also have some warmth with that as well. And I find that's very, just talking about technically, very effective in being with another human being.
Yep. That's my, yep.
Yeah, yeah. And
Well, it's being, it's not doing. I mean, there's
me.
I don't believe in doing to or the doing with before the being. You
Yeah,
can't do something to or with someone without actually being in the same room with them first.
you got to show up as a person if you want to get this stuff. I have to show up as a person. And and I tell you what I love to do too.
I think both of us have to show up as people.
Yeah,
I know you can only take your own responsibility, but you also can't work with someone who's not showing up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can always say you're not showing up. What's that about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes that moves forward, sometimes it doesn't. And it's about being flexible. It's like, okay, that didn't go anywhere. That's okay. Now,
Mhm.
go from here. And I tell you what I love to do. And we used to be, and I think we technically may still be, if that designation even exists. We used to be the Southeastern representative for was AAGT, then it's
Mhm.
IAAGT now. And we used to do these conferences.
Add any more letters, it's going to sound like we're having a stroke when we try to say it.
But now I didn't.
The more letters they add, the more it sounds like we're having strokes when we try to say it.
You're right. I know. And when we did the conferences, we had some incredible participants and uh, facilitators. We had people come and do Gestalt equine,
Mhm.
voice, singing, movement, 5 rhythms. It was amazing, all kinds of visualizations and music, and I love that piece of it. And I love bringing that to the training. I love to bring that to the individual stuff sometimes, the visualizations, paying attention to body, because we are a body. What are you thinking, but also what are you feeling and experiencing? What are you hearing? What's in your belly? Pay attention to your breathing. Just I what I find is there are ways we can get to where we need to get through some didactic kinds of experiences, but I think we can also get there just by paying attention to our experiences, our feelings, what's happening. And I don't even mind the old screaming and beating pillows if one needs to, and kind of thing sometimes. Uh, Attempting to put responsibility on other people and yelling about, okay, now you're done. Just paying attention to the body and the visceral parts of ourselves is a lot of awakening that can happen. I enjoy that actually more than some of the other aspects of it, but all of them I find to be valuable. What else am I doing? you know, Sometimes I'm a social worker. Sometimes I'm going, you ever try acupuncture? You ever got any body work? Here's a book. Want to read some Gestalt stuff?
So how do you link that to being a social worker? I mean, my understanding of it is, the social worker as sort of the hub that connects the people to their resources. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. There's other resources to connect them to. And I don't. My perception is that hasn't been, and maybe all that's changed since I began, because I've been doing this for almost 50 years. The perception, I think, way back then was you don't do that. You don't connect them up with this, that. You just do whatever you're doing in the moment. And I think all of that's probably changed. Yeah. Uh, I like sharing what I found valuable too, and I always like to say, "Hey, this has worked for me. I don't know if it'll work for you, but it's something that I find valuable. What you think? What you feel?" So we're always exploring.
Hmm.
It, to me, it's about the Gestalt piece is about the whole person, and whatever we need to do at the given moment. I mean, it could even be a little CBT stuff. And if it works at that moment, and we're looking at the whole person, to me, that comes out of a Gestalt perspective.
Hmm. What would you say have been some of the challenges for you, either within the Gestalt part of life or work, or what comes up with the word challenge? Because this is what you are doing. What do you run up against?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a long time ago, even as I was doing Gestalt, thinking I was supposed to be responsible for people, fix them, change them. That was a struggle for me in the beginning because I actually gave myself a lot of meaning there that way as somebody who was a helper.
Mm.
And I know that actually was a way to attempt to put myself up as an authority.
Mm.
And that was a struggle for me in the beginning times. And I can remember sometimes as I begin to let go of that, I wasn't so comfortable. And I would even get a little depressed. It's like, where's my value now?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to create other ways and look at myself and others a little differently. Uh, what's coming up for me is like, okay. I remember some of the agencies and places I worked for were, were pretty much a struggle because they didn't understand or want to understand. I don't know which the perspectives with which I would come from. So they would see things very differently. Those were struggles. Um, and I for a few years, I actually did uh, in-home therapy. I was going into different people's homes, mostly probably 98% poor, um, poor housing, um, not always the most sanitary places, all that. That was a struggle for me in terms of I can be a little germophobic.
Mm.
Going there. It's like, okay, I'm going home to take a shower after this and
Wow.
stuff. But and part of the struggle was, what is this germophobic stuff about? What are you doing to yourself here? What's that interjection?
Mm-hmm.
I found it in lots of ways, not necessarily at the moment, but as I moved through it, some pretty amazing learning there. And here's the thing, knowing that there were people, for example, that had their children taken out of the home. And part of my job was to work with them to get the kids back. And they weren't interested in therapy. Sometimes they weren't interested in showing up for what they needed to do to get the kids back.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it was me that, you know, I've been working with the judge a long time now, and I know what they're going to do and say, generally speaking. What they're going to want from you. They ain't telling me what to do. Okay. I just want to share with you. So, it's another way of being with them where they
Mm-hmm.
are and not having them to change, but letting them know what my experience is and what I see and can I assist you in any way to get your kids back.
Well, and it maybe without the assumption that getting their kids back is the best or the only outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, from their mouths, it was, but that's not necessarily the reality of what is best for the kids.
Mhm.
That's right. And that was part of the thing too, is actually keeping that, bringing that into the picture, but keeping it as a minimum, because they get, I don't know what they're going to do in the long run. They may actually move themselves to a place where it is the best place. I don't know what it's going to be later, and sometimes that would happen.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle has been in my waking up and looking at how I'm being with myself and the other people, and with my family too, and my friends. It's like, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm uncomfortable. What am I going to do with that? What am I going to do with me? Not thinking of anything else at the moment.
There you go. Well, what
Nothing
about
else.
next? What about next? Do you have plans? Do you have prospects? Things that you're looking forward to, or at least looking forward to trying?
Yeah, I would like to add. I'm thinking of it as color. I would like to add more color to AGTI. More of the kind of thing I was talking about. We used to do um, at the conferences we presented. I like that kind of thing. I love the poetry and the music and all. We do a little bit of that now, but I like to do more. I'm also actually interested too in Ruel's work, and would like to participate in that some, and bringing in some more people, bringing in different people who have different perspectives. And Ernest has one, we have some similar things, and that's all great. Okay.
Mm.
But you have another one, Ruel has another one. And see, what I love in the training, this is essential to me. Gestalt therapies has its principles and ideas and concepts and all that stuff. And that's all important to learn. But when you go work, if you ever work with Pearls, if you work with Heather, if you work with Nicholas, you're going to see something different, a little bit different, maybe a lot.
Mhm.
And it really comes out of who you are, where you are at any given moment. That's the essence of what I like to teach in that program. And in that way, I like the students to have an opportunity to see different people, different perspectives. And I don't know if you've clicked into any of James Yates' stuff. He's doing some stuff for us now, and
Mhm.
they're different. He was actually training with us for a year, a long time ago. Very different than what Ernest and I do, or some other people. And I think it's valuable for the students to see that. Oh, I can do it who out of who I am being.
Mhm.
So I'd like to increase that more. Uh, you know, uh, I'd, besides the Gestalt thing, and it's all Gestalt to me. Uh, that's just living. Uh, I'd like to do more traveling than I've done.
Hmm.
And I even thought about uh, I can actually Greece actually supports people to come and work on Zoom there.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I'll do this, but I'm thinking about maybe I'll go spend some extended time there. I'm actually doing a seminar in September with one of my cousins who lives in Athens,
Hmm.
which on Zoom. She's been a teacher and a therapist in the school systems in Athens, and she's also published several children's books.
Hmm.
So we're going to do a seminar on writing from the body, writing from who you are. I don't remember even what the title. We got it all written up, but we just haven't posted it yet. So we're looking at people from Greece, U.S., and wherever to do that. So I'm excited about doing that. And when one of my granddaughters was little, she and her mother lived with us for a few years, and she was a single mom. And when it was my turn to put her to bed, I would tell her these stories about these little twins, and their names were similar to hers and my oldest granddaughter. They would take these little magical journeys, and often they lived in Greece, but they would travel all around the world and the universe, and all this stuff. And she talked to me a long time about writing those down, and I've started doing that. So I want to spend more time doing that. I want to spend more time creating that because, and I still have it, the thoughts and the feelings about it, us being there and putting it to sleep with that, and that's, I still maintain that as a part of me, and I want to put that down. And that child, she's 18 years old, going to Spain. She's an incredible artist. And my wife is as well, and her mother is as well, but she's just eons above the both of them. And she started to do some illustrations for it. So working together with her to do that is, I just get very excited about that. There's a little place I've seemed to have lost touch with them, and there may be a way to get in touch with them. I'm not sure. You may even know about it. I don't know. My father grew up on a little island in Greece called Egina. It's about a 45-minute hydrofoil ride from Athens in the Saronic Gulf. And I don't know if they're operating it now, if they've transformed themselves apart, but they were called School of All Relations. And they work with adolescents in supporting them in their moving, I think, more gracefully into adulthood, or whatever. That's my word. And I was talking to them for a while about coming there and doing some seminars and participating in that. But my plan is to be more in touch with them and find a way to be in touch with them, see if that's a possibility.
So a little bit more storytelling, a little bit more Greece.
A little bit. I don't know, but it's part of the pull for me is that's where my father grew up, and I have family there, and I just feel this huge connection there, and would be thinking, although, like I said, you don't know what it's like till you get there. Thinking that would be pretty exciting to go there and do that where my grandparents grew up and died, and my father grew up and was a part of it, and do that on that island. We'll see. We'll see.
Sounds lovely.
We are also into transforming our land here in our house as well. We have this incredible couple we found who are totally into native plants. We support the bees, birds, and all that stuff. So we're working with them to change this property and putting in things that will support the ecology, the environment. We're pretty excited about doing that.
Nice. So very local and very global thoughts at the same time.
That's right. That's right. So we're into that pretty much. We work at doing things pretty environmentally supportive within our financial means.
Oh,
And here's the thing. Here may be the most important response I want to give to your question is, I don't know what's next. I'll find out. I may change my thinking and my feeling tomorrow.
I have
I
no
don't-
doubt.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm always open to. What's next? I'll find out. I have these thoughts and ideas. We'll see where I go.
Mhm.
We'll see what is.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. Is this okay for you for now?
Yeah, yeah. I thank you as well. It's a pleasure each time we've met to be with you. I
Same.
appreciate the work that you're doing. And I'm I'm often, letting people know about your work and where to find it, and as a resource for them to learn about Gestalt in their own lives. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. So we'll leave this one here. Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't hear the last thing.
I said we'll leave this one here then.
Okay,